Now, let's get on to something which is a bit more important to people in their lives, certainly me. Let's talk about alcohol for a minute, okay? Because, I run a campaign. It's called Bladdo in Modo. That means bladderation in moderation, because we should all be able to enjoy a drink. And when we enjoy a drink, we should be able to reap the benefits of the consumption of alcohol, in my view. But what strength should your alcohol be? Now, there's a bit of a war going on here in the gin world, because gin is generally, I would say, of a proof of about 40%. And don't worry, I've got an expert coming on right now to correct that for me if I'm wrong. But there is a movement at the moment to produce what's called low alcohol gin, which gets down to as low as 1.2%, which in my book is not even alcoholic, really, and certainly not if it's gin. I've seen beers, sort of 1.2%, which is about a quarter of their normal strength. But to have a gin, which is 1/20th of the strength of normal gin, is stretching my imagination a little bit. So anyway, look, I'm delighted that the next guest on the show now is Nicolas Cook, Director General of the Gin Guild. Nick, thank you very much indeed for joining me. Hello, Nick.
So enthusiastic at this time of day.
Yeah, well, it's very kind of you, Nick. Now, Nick, I hope I've outlined the issue as accurately as I possibly can. You are from the Gin Guild. You say there is no such thing as a low alcohol or no alcohol gin. The line must not be crossed when it comes to accurately describing what is and what is not gin. Do you stand by that?
Absolutely right. That is the law. There's no such thing as non-alcoholic gin. There's no such thing as non-alcoholic whiskey. They just don't exist.
Yeah.
They are defined terms. Gin is a defined term. It's protected under both EU and UK regulation.
Mm-hmm.
And you were talking about the minimum alcohol level.
Yes.
Gin, to be described as gin, has to be a minimum of 37.5%.
Right.
And that's the law.
Yes.
So it's basically for protection of consumers, that if a beverage isn't meeting that category requirement, the regulations provide that you shouldn't use the word gin or qualify it with words like style or type or similar qualifications. So we're passionate about it. We're not quite as aggressive as perhaps you might have made out, but we certainly want the name gin to be applied to the right product.
Yeah, okay, I accept all that. Now, I'm not sure if you are aware of this, but a gentleman with whom you've had a heated debate about this, Spencer Matthews, who runs Clean Co. He was on my show last week, and he was explaining to me. Yes, exactly. And he was explaining to me, the virtues of his product. And I'll call it a product because you tell me legally it's not a gin. Okay. Now, what I was going to say is do you accept that his idea that people can absorb a liquid which tastes like gin but does not have the alcoholic strength of gin should be available to the public if they want to consume that taste?
Absolutely. There's absolutely no problem with a non-alcoholic or a low alcohol drink brand being produced. It's a growing area. It's one into which I anticipate many of the existing liquor brands will seek to dip a toe alongside their more well-known and alcoholic options. There's clearly a lot of interest in it from consumers for such products, but they should be available to adults. They just shouldn't be identified as gin. They should be branded without wordplay or reference to the existing and defined spirit categories.
Yes.
And that, as I said, is a reference to the law.
I don't quite understand, and I said this to Spencer when he was on the show, I don't understand why anybody would want to consume a glass of something at 1.2% strength when the normal strength of that product or the normal strength of gin is 40%, because surely the purpose of devouring a large gin and tonic, which is sitting in a glass, bubbling and fizzing in front of you with the ice clinking onto the glass, surely the idea of consuming that is so that you feel different after you've drunk it than you did before you drunk it. And if you're drinking something at 1.2% strength, it doesn't have that effect on you. So I don't understand the purpose of it.
Well, it's lovely, again, to hear you quite so enthusiastic about, obviously, the product with which we're all very proud.
Yeah.
But there's nothing wrong with adults having a drink which emulates or gives the same taste, which is not a cola or similar. And I have no problem with it at all, nor does anybody in the industry. All we object to is that, having worked so hard in the industry to develop a wonderful product with so many brilliant craft distillers joining the industry
Indeed.
in the last 10 years and investing in their wonderful plant and creating craft products, that should be sacrosanct. And as I said, it is the law. If you decide to break the law, there are consequences.
So are you actually mounting a legal objection to Mr. Matthews' campaign to try and pursue, a policy of calling his product gin?
He's not calling it gin anymore.
Ah,
I think
right.
that says it all.
So what's happened?
We objected to the name, which was that time Clean Gin, when it first came out late last year.
Yep.
It was duly reported, and I think it is safe to say you may draw a line under it. It is now known as Clean G. Yeah. It's not called gin. That's absolutely fine.
Right. So that defines the line difference between the product that you represent and Mr. Matthews. Do you think you're being a bit unfair here on, slapping somebody down who is only trying to have a go and produce something that consumers want? You've admitted that consumers want it, and are you being a bit heavy-handed?
No. Is the short answer.
Yep.
If you want me to expand,
yes,
I
please.
can.
Yes, please.
Basically, as I said, there is a wonderful industry. Over 83 million bottles of gin were sold in the UK in the last 12 months.
That's a lot.
That's worth about 2.6 billion.
Yeah.
That is, in anybody's book, not small change.
Yeah.
It's an industry which deserves the protection of law. The law is there, and it is right that small distillers and big distillers alike are protected.
Right, okay. Is there in any way a bit of envy here that, the enormous industry that you represent, billions of pounds worth, haven't got into the low alcohol rhythm of things? Because everybody knows in recent years, this market has expanded enormously. People drinking non-alcoholic cocktails and all that. Are you being a bit churlish here in that maybe you should have thought about getting into that area of a new business?
What, churlish? No. As I said, I anticipate that many liquor brands will seek to dip a toe in the market.
Yep.
If you look at the Gordon's 0%, which was launched earlier this year, you'll see a very similar looking bottle shape and logos and things to which they use in their alcoholic product for their product.
Yep.
Warner's Distillery do the same.
Right.
Beefeater have just brought out a 20% version of their gin, which they don't, again, call a gin.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think a lot of people will be making it available an alternative, but as you so enthusiastically say, when you want gin, you want the real thing.
Of course
if it's not gin in the bottle, you shouldn't put gin on the bottle. Yeah,
no, I totally agree with all of that, and I do think you've got to protect these products, because I don't want to be fooled into drinking something that's not gin, and I could be if it looked like a bottle of gin and it had gin written on the front. So I'm actually supporting your campaign, and very much so. What about the overall effect of COVID on the gin industry, please, Nick? Because you may have survived a little better than the public trade industry because people buy bottles of gin in supermarkets.
Well, they do, but as from March the 23rd last year, the industry, particularly those who are selling brands of gin which are basically initially marketed to their local area, were cut off at the knees without being able to supply restaurants, bars, pubs and the like. Their route to market disappeared literally overnight. They're in a better position than brewers who had the problem of beer actually going off because once you've put beer into a barrel, it goes off.
Sure.
So if it's in a pub, it has to be drunk within a reasonable period of time. And I'm sure you'd have helped out, but you haven't. But but basically gin does last. But a lot of gin distillers have found other routes to market, either expanding their online sales or having people come and collect from their distillery. So they've bounced, but it's not as enthusiastic in terms of sales as it would have been had they had access to the hospitality trade, for which all of the industry, of course, has a great deal of concern, because it's going to be, by all accounts, May, June or so on before the hospitality trade will start to reopen its doors.
Yeah, that is breaking my heart. I can't wait till May. I'm starting a campaign.
One of the big problems is that you can no longer go into a bar and through your friendly barman run through the back bar of gins and try the various gins on offer. So you actually have to go and buy a full bottle, which is why we've brought out a thing called gin-note, gin note. You can find it on our website, www.thegинguild.com, which has flavour profiles for a number of gins, which you can look at to see whether you like the profile before you buy the bottle.
Well, that's fantastic. Okay. Nick, thank you very much indeed for joining me this afternoon. Nicolas Cook, Director General of the Gin Guild, and giving it to us straight.